You're watching NBA Now by Chat Sports. I am Chase Sr. Let's get to the latest NBA news and rumors. And with the NBA offseason here for a lot of teams not in playoff contention, the rumors are certainly juicy. Let's kick off today's show with getting into the latest on Kristaps Porzingis, because I think it's somewhat inevitable that the Dallas Mavericks are at least going to explore a trade to try to get a better player back to pair with Luka Doncic. And Mark Cuban has said openly in the past that there have been, quote, dust-ups between Kristaps Porzingis and Luka Doncic. Now, Luka Doncic is entering a critical year and a critical summer because the Dallas Mavericks can offer him a max contract. And he smiled during his postseason press conference back a couple days ago when he was asked if he was going to sign that contract extension. So the main priority for the Dallas Mavericks, if Luka says he's going to sign that max, it's keeping him happy in NBA free agency and getting him a legitimate number 2 player. I don't think Kristaps Porzingis is that guy, and a lot of sources around the NBA agree with me on that one. Here's what a source had to say recently to NBA Analysis Network. The Mavericks are absolutely going to entertain the idea of trading Kristaps Porzingis in the offseason, but nobody is going to be interested. He was close to a no-show in the playoffs this year and has not been the same player ever since he injured his left knee in 2018. For $30 million a year, there are much better options than Porzingis league-wide. So that's what a source had to say to NBA Analysis Network. I let my feelings be known that I'm not a big fan of KP either, especially after those injuries, and I think, quite frankly, he's somewhat soft. Do you think the Dallas Mavericks are going to trade Kristaps Porzingis this offseason? Get into the comments, get your votes in, and let me know what you think about this. Type T for trade, type K for keep, get your votes in down below. A big reason why Kristaps Porzingis might get traded, why the Dallas Mavericks want to relieve themselves of that salary, that figure is not good for the player that Kristaps Porzingis currently is. This upcoming season, he's going to make $31.5 million. The season after that, $33.8 million. And in 2023-24, that salary, that base salary, jumps up all the way to $36 million. That can really be prohibitive for a franchise that really needs pieces to surround Luka Doncic, because right now he's really the only legitimate star on this roster. Kevin O'Connor, what did he have to say about Kristaps Porzingis on a recent podcast? Kevin O'Connor has some inside sources and works for The Ringer. He's very tapped into NBA circles. And I thought what he had to say about Kristaps Porzingis' situation in Dallas and the Mavericks' situation with him was somewhat fascinating. Quote, "The trouble here is that the Dallas Mavericks are facing a challenge to make massive changes to the roster. Porzingis has 2 seasons left plus a player option for a 3rd year left on his contract, and teams don't want him if they try to trade him. Mark Cuban denied previous reports that the Mavericks shopped Kristaps Porzingis, but at the least, league sources have told me interest in Porzingis is minimal. Teams are scared off by the money, the health, and possibly his diminishing production." And the production for Kristaps Porzingis has no doubt diminished over the last couple of years. I think his on-court fit alongside Luka Doncic can be a little funky. And if Mark Cuban, who's very familiar and tapped into what's going on within the organization that he does run, has said that there are dust-ups between Porzingis and Luka, I'm trying to get him out of here because my main goal is to make Luka happy. As for the favorites to land Porzingis, odds makers have put out some fascinating odds as well. The Boston Celtics, right now the leaders to trade for him at plus 200. Some solid value there. The Warriors coming in at plus 225. The Oklahoma City Thunder, you might be saying, why would they want to trade for Kristaps Porzingis? They're not competing right now. They're not tied down to anybody financially. They're at plus 300 on these recent odds. The Magic at plus 400 and the Wizards at plus 500. We'll see if maybe they pull a trigger for Kristaps Porzingis to pair him with Russell Westbrook and Bradley Beal. I think Kristaps is damaged goods. I think he's somewhat soft. He was a no-show in the first round of the NBA playoffs, and every time I've seen him go up against some legitimate competition, he's folded. And since that ACL injury that he suffered back in 2018, he just has not been the same player. At one point, you thought he was going to be a unicorn, an athletic freak who was a rim-running guy who could also stretch the floor a little bit and be a legitimate modern-day big man. But his game has changed because of those injuries, and I think when he tries to bang down low against some legitimate centers across the league, he just doesn't have that physical presence that you need in that position. And while the raw numbers for this past season were just okay, the eye test will tell you Kristaps Porzingis isn't it, especially when you're paying him north of $30 million over the next 3 seasons. So grade Kristaps Porzingis right now in this current moment as a player. Very simple. A, B, C, D, or F. Be honest with me, play the scout, be the general manager, and grade how you think Kristaps Porzingis is right now as a player in the NBA, A, B, C, D, or F. Be sure to get your votes in down below and let me know what you think about the current status of Kristaps Porzingis. I said he's soft, he's overpaid. I frankly don't think he's all that good, but for teams out there who are looking to make a splash this offseason, and they're trying to get rid of a big salary, Kristaps Porzingis could be a guy they trade for. I'm talking about the Boston Celtics with Kemba Walker, as well as the Golden State Warriors. Golden State Warriors also have a lot of offseason questions. One of them, they're going to bring back Kelly Oubre Jr. According to Vincent Goodwell of Yahoo Sports, going to be a couple teams interested in Oubre for next season and beyond. That includes the Miami Heat, the San Antonio Spurs, the New York Knicks, as well as the Golden State Warriors. Now, Bob Myers, in his postseason press conference, did come out and say, we want Kelly Oubre, we want him back, we just traded for him in November, we see him as a valuable part of the future. But where would Kelly Oubre fit in this lineup if Klay Thompson comes back? Are you willing to pay Kelly Oubre $15 to $20 million to come off the bench, a guy who this past year was somewhat inconsistent? The big question for the Warriors, as well as Kelly Oubre Jr. and some of the other teams that might be interested, how much is he going to demand on the open market? Here's a sneak peek as to how much he might be able to secure in terms of the bag. These are similar players with similar skill sets who are making salaries that I believe are going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of what Oubre is going to demand as a free agent. Jeremy Grant finished runner-up in the NBA Most Improved Player of the Year award behind Julius Randle. He's making $20 million per year from the Detroit Pistons. Gary Harris, who was sent to the Magic in that Eric Gordon trade, he's making $21 million a year. OG Anunoby, great developmental story for the Toronto Raptors, making $18 million a year. And Dylan Brooks on his rookie contract making $12 million per year. So I think that there are going to be teams out there who are going to be willing to fork over to Kelly Oubre $15 to $20 million. So from Bob Myers and the Golden State Warriors perspective, do we want to sign and bring back a guy knowing that we have some financial and cap issues when we know that he's a good player but not a great player? And this is what I mean in saying that, because this past year, he was just okay. There were times when he flashed, and he looked really good. But I'd say throughout the majority of his first year with the Warriors, he just wasn't as good as he was on the Phoenix Suns 2 years ago when he broke out. North of 15 points per game, which is a decent number, 6 rebounds, 1.3 assists. The field goal percentage for a guy who you want to rely on to have some volume in terms of field goal attempts at just over 40% or in the low 40s just isn't good enough for me. The one thing with Kelly Oubre Jr., though, you know you're going to get effort every single night. You're going to get athleticism. There are going to be nights offensively when he pops, and he's always going to bring it on the defensive end of the floor as well. So where do you think Kelly Oubre will end up in a few months once the 2021-2022 season begins? Type W for the Golden State Warriors, type O for other. Get your predictions in the comment section down below. If I'm Bob Myers, it's really tough to justify. If I have conversations with Kelly Oubre and his camp, and I'm like, yo, Kelly, we want to bring you back. We see you as having a role on this team moving forward, even with Klay Thompson coming back. You can either be a spot starter for us, you can come off the bench. We want to give you somewhere in the neighborhood of $12, $15 million. You can team up with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, and we can make at least one more run at an NBA championship. If they come back and say, hey, I think my client deserves $20+ million, I'm saying thank you for your 1 year in Golden State, but let's move on.